Sasha Riggins. I'm back again, and today I am interviewing John Davis. All right, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is John Henry Davis, and I was born in Rockmart, Georgia, at home. And I moved from Rockmart to Rome, Georgia, where I was raised up by my parents, Amos and Savannah Davis. And I remember that they, in turn, was moving around due to the fact that they never owned a house till they was in their late 60s. And don't know nothing else.
Well, do you have any siblings?
I have 4 siblings, 3 sisters, and 1 brother, which all my siblings are gone except my sister Grace and myself. We're the only 2 left.
Okay, are you the oldest, the youngest?
I am the youngest of the whole family.
Okay, what is Grace? Is she the oldest?
Grace is next to the oldest.
Okay, who was the oldest?
Actually, she's actually 2 from the oldest.
Okay.
The oldest was Margaret Davis.
Okay. By the way, everyone, this is my father. The last interview we did with Althea Davis, she is my mother. And so we are going ahead and we are going to discuss this. And so the biased input that I give, this is because these are my parents. All right. So how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as a self-made, determined man. And the reason I say that is because I believe in myself that I can do anything and I can have anything that I want.
All right. So what was your childhood like?
My childhood was pretty tough. I remember there was times that we lived at age about 8 through 14. We lived up in an area called Chulio Road, and we drank out of a well that had frogs and snakes in it. I could be in the bed and look through the floor and see the chickens under the house. My sisters got to fighting and knocked a bigger hole in the floor, and we ended up having snakes in the house. And I would hide my shoes from my brother over behind the bed. And as I hid my shoes, a snake had gotten up under our bed and I slept on the back side against the wall. And I reached over to get my shoes that morning, and I felt something that felt strange, so I pulled it up, and it was a snake. He looked at me, and I looked at him, and I put him back, and I dived off the bed and got my father to come in there and kill him.
Oh.
He was a little over 6 foot long.
Throw the whole hands away. Okay.
But also in our home, my father and my mother, my father got his feet hung around the lawnmower, cut off the front part of his feet. And he was in the hospital. My mama had a nervous breakdown, and the oldest child at home was 14 years old. So there was time that we laid around waiting on the chickens to lay so we'd have food, and wait on the cow we'd get milk from the cow. And that's what we had for over a month and a half. And we had to run down this hill to catch the bus. And I went to an all-black school at that time, doing my elementary school.
It was segregated?
Yes. And we would run down the hill to catch the bus, which was probably about 4 blocks. And we catch the bus down there. We had to wait, whether it was cold, hot, or whatever. We had to wait most time in the woods just above the road where we caught the bus at, just to keep the wind and everything from really being on us and all.
Man, I know you told a story about going to school and how you had peanut butter crackers and had holes in your shoes and stuff like that, and how your teacher treated you. Yes,
when we went to school, my parents they didn't have a lot of money. My dad made about $48 a week as a janitor. My mom made $25 a week. And they would be gone from 6 in the morning to most time around 6 in the evening. And we couldn't afford clothes and stuff like that. So I had a pair of Brogan boots and old flannel shirt that they would buy us for Christmas. And you had, each one of us would get 2 of each thing, and that's what you wore. But for lunch, I remember going to school, and I was probably in about the 2nd or the 3rd grade, and I remember this young man that was a friend of mine. His father ran a grocery store. So he would pay for lunch every day, and I couldn't afford the 25 cents to pay for lunch. Because we would always take peanut butter crackers to school, and you only could get, they came in the 4 of the little small squares all attached. And you would make one of those all with the 4, and that's what we had for lunch, and we'd have to drink water. But this friend of mine, he asked me why I never ate in the lunchroom, and so he paid the 25 cents for me to eat in the lunchroom one time, which I thought was the biggest and the best thing in the world to eat in that lunchroom and have a choice of foods, because even at home we didn't have a choice of food. We just had to eat whatever was there. But I remember also while in school, there was this girl that used to sit in front of me named, and am I supposed to call names?
You can call names.
Her name was Jennifer McCoy. And she had beautiful hair, and I used to try to play with her hair, and she didn't like it, so she told the teacher, and the teacher told her to pull my hair, and she just ripped me right out of my seat, because I had an afro at the time, and she just grabbed a handful and drug me around the room, and of course, being a child, I cried about it, and I do remember when the teacher did stop her. She was looking at my ankles, and like I said, we didn't have water and stuff. My parents would have to bring water in milk jugs for us to have water at the house. And so we didn't take a bath as often as we should have. And I had rusty ankles, and the teacher would point it out to the other kids and talk about me in front of the other kids, and to embarrass me to take a bath, I guess. I don't know what the problem was, but that was something that really stuck with me through school.
And I remember when you told me that story, and it bothered me. I told my students that story actually this school year, and that broke their heart. They were like, why did she do that? So that is something that was traumatic, that even stood out to myself, and even when I tell other people that is very hurtful. That's you being bullied by teachers, essentially. Yeah. And that was terrible. So throughout the years, what kind of occupations have you held?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I looked at my parents and I thought to myself, I don't want to be like this. I want to be able to take care of my family. I want to make sure that I have a nice house for my children to live in. I want to make sure that I have a job, that I made enough money that we didn't have to go without anything that we wanted. And so in thinking like that, it drove me to do more and to take jobs that I really didn't want a lot of times, because I worked in carpet mills, I worked in cleaning up places for real estate companies, and then I made up my mind one day that I wasn't making it good enough, because I used to be in a little gang. I had about 5 or 6 other guys that were with me, and we would just ride around town, and we'd go and we'd fight against the white boys that would be playing football on the football field. We put bicycle chains on sticks and go and beat them and run them off the field and take over the field.
Is that when you got your name Deerfoot Davis?
No, what?
Your name Deerfoot Davis?
No, at that time they called me Tater. And because I love sweet potatoes. And so everybody started to call me Tater at that time. But we went to the store, me and my little gang, and we was gonna buy a drink. And like I said, it was about 6 or 7 of us all together. And the 6 or 7 of us couldn't even afford a drink, because none of us was working, and we was actually in teenage years. So I made up my mind right there, and I said, something's got to change. And that's when I went into the military, knowing that Vietnam was going on at the time, knowing that it wasn't something I really wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to make life better for myself and whatever family I was going to have later on. One thing I do want to talk about though is the racism that I experienced growing up. I remember going into a laundromat and they had white and black, white and colored bathrooms, and I remember going into the white bathroom and being thrown out. A man come in and pulled me out of there, and I was a child, about 7 or 8 years old, and told me that I don't go in contaminating their bathroom. And all over town at that time, that's the way it was. The white kids didn't play with the blacks, and the blacks didn't play with the whites. And I also remember as we was watching one day, the white people at the swimming pool, and they started to call us chocolate drops, throwing rocks at us to run us away, and wouldn't let us come to the swimming pool, and it was a public pool. So all of that stuck with me, that I was going to one day try to bring the whites and the blacks that was working with me or around me. I made up my mind that I was going to make them like me one way or the other. And so when I went into the military, I actually had a guy that slept next to me on a cot next to me, and he was from Sumter, Georgia. He said he had never been that close to a black man in his life, and he thought I was going to do something to him at night. So he'd sit up in his bed and watch me half the night.
That made me scared. Thinking you gonna do something to me.
But before we left there, he and I was very close friends. But in the military, I felt like that I was going to be a failure due to the fact that in high school, I was good at football, good at wrestling and stuff like that, but I wasn't good at school.
You told me you went to school one time, and that was to carry your brother's book back.
And I say that because people always talk about me about school and stuff, and that was my way of shutting them up. But anyway, in fact, I was real good at football. I could have played pro football had I had the opportunity, but back in that time, you had to finish college before the pro football team would even look at you. But in the military, I got a chance to do the things that I had wanted to do all my life. I got to be a man that I wasn't seen as a black man. I was seen as a man in the Army. And how hard you work and what you do dictate who you are, who you was in the military, whether you get promoted or not. So I done real well in the military. I got promoted a lot faster than a lot of other people. Yeah, a lot of people would say that I was a sucker up, and a lot of soldiers would call me butt kisser. But what happened was those same soldiers that was talking about me ended up working for me in the military. And so, as I was saying, I got promoted fast, and I also got married to my wife, Cobra, and had 7 kids in all.
7?
7 kids. And out of the 7 kids, I only had 1 boy.
Unfortunate.
And, I made up my mind, though, that all of my kids would be able to have a good life and be comfortable and not have to worry about the racism and all the prejudice stuff that I went through, or being in a drug environment. In other words, a lot of the blacks was living in areas that were slum areas. I never lived in a slum area with my children. I always lived in real nice houses. We was always able to buy a new car every year. Well, not every year, but at least every 3 years. And we just ended up being a lot better off with me in the military. And I retired from the military and just enjoyed my life. And even now, I'm able to live a good life.
Yeah. I can't say that we were fortunate enough to live well. I don't remember times when we were like really struggling or anything like that. Like, we always had food, we always had a place to stay, we always had our own things. I don't remember having to have a lot of hand-me-down things. We always did have nice things. I don't know if they were name brand because I was young growing up and that was never something on my mind, but I don't recall having to wear worn down clothes or shoes or anything like that, or ever having to go with that. You're right. So, how far back in your family tree do you know of, or can you like remember? Do you have any pictures, anything like that?
I don't have pictures. My father's name was Amos, and his father's name was Isaiah, and my father's father's name was John Davis also.
Okay, John Davis. Okay.
The only difference is mine's John Henry. His was just John Davis.
What about you on your mom's side?
I remember my mother was named Jeannie Jett. And before that, she was Jeannie Whitehead. I don't know her father. I was told her father was white, even though my sister said I just blew that up in my own mind, but I don't know how that worked out.
Because Aunt Grace did tell me she was full-blown Cherokee.
She was Cherokee, but I was told by my parents that she was Cherokee and white.
Oh, I thought that your mom was Cherokee and white.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm talking about your grandma Jeannie.
My grandmother was full Cherokee.
Okay. So do you know anything about Grandma Jeannie's
I know nothing.
family?
Nothing.
So none of the Jets. Okay.
I know that all I know is she had about 5 kids, and each one had a different father. And I remember her being married to this gentleman that was not my grandfather, because all my grandfathers died before I was born.
Okay. So tell me about these pictures here. What you got right here? Fancy pants.
Let's see if I can get it up here and see it.
There you go.
This is my son, and these are my daughters.
Okay, can you tell us their names? And is this from oldest to youngest?
Yes. No. This is
You missing
Sean,
one.
he's the oldest. This is Tamika, who was the second, the third oldest. And then Misty, fourth. And Kobe, fifth. And Nikki, the sixth. And Sasha, the seventh.
Yeah, that's me right here. So the one that's missing is what? Keisha.
Yes.
The second oldest, so she would be right here. Keisha just happened to be out of town that day, so she didn't get a chance to take a picture with us. But this is us from the oldest to the youngest, minus Keisha. Okay, what about this picture here?
Well, the Bible said, "Be fruitful and multiply." That's why I
You
have
way
so
too
many.
fruitful, multiply way too many times. Okay.
This is my picture about 4 years before I retired from the military.
How old were you in this picture?
I was probably about 41.
41, looking that good?
Yep, 41.
You look real good in this picture. It was a picture you
Look
had
good
where you
now.
were 21. You were 21 when you were in the military. I saw, and maybe I'll get a picture of that and add it to the video later. But, all right, so what's something you wish you had have kept or saved?
I had a 1948 Ford on my very first car. And I wish I had that 1948 Ford right now.
Why?
Good car.
It was just a real nice car, and it was something I liked. We had a flat-head engine in it, flat-head. So
Okay. So have you lived the life you wanted to live? And if not, what would you change?
I would change my life from the age of 20 down, because I went through some struggles. I went through some hard times, and I felt unloved by my father due to the fact that my father, he didn't know how to deal with children. He didn't know how to communicate with children. And my mother, it seemed like she just overdo it. And I was never a mother's baby. I was always just that child that wanted to make it on my own. Because I thought that my life just could be better. And even as a small child, I wanted my life to be better.
That's probably where I get that from. My independence. I've always wanted that independence. You're right. So, what's your funniest memory?
My funniest memory was my brother and I used to run around playing army, and my cousins would come down and spend the summer with us, and we would run sometime 2 to 3 miles around in the area we lived in, throwing rocks, pears, and whatever we could throw at each other, because we didn't have the plastic guns or whatever to play army. So we played real army by throwing rocks and pears and things at each other, and literally knocking each other out a lot of time with rocks and things. But my brother and my cousin had gotten up in top of the barn in the hayloft, and they was going to try to ambush me and my younger cousin. And I was sneaking around the side of the barn, and I heard something fall up in the hayloft. And when I run in the stable to see, my brother had fell through where we put the hay down for the cow to eat, and his head was stuck on one side, and his back of his head was up against the wall, and he couldn't get out, and he was being hung. And that to us was the funniest thing we could have ever seen. And we tried to get him out, we couldn't. Then my father had to come down and literally get him out. Well, it was even worse. The next day, my little cousin threw a pitchfork at him and tried to scare him, I guess. But he had his arm up against the wall, holding on to the wall, and the pitchfork went through his arm and pinned him to the wall.
That's not good playing. I'm glad you didn't have boys. That would have stressed you out. Oh, okay. Well, what was your most embarrassing moment?
My most embarrassing moment was probably that situation with that teacher, because it stuck with me and it just never went away.
Even in your older age, I can tell that still bothers you.
Yeah.
That bothers me. So what are you most proud of?
I think, to me, the thing that I'm most proud of when I look at my children and I see that my children many of them have made something out of themselves, and even though I may not have been the best parent, I may not have done everything that I should have done, but I see that they still come out great. And I remember hearing one of my Army friends saying, why is it that your kids come out okay and mine didn't? And so that makes me proud of my children.
All right. What's your biggest regret?
I think my biggest regret would be that I didn't stay in the Army longer. I enjoyed it.
I know, because when we thought we were going back to war, you trying your uniform back on, trying to see if it fit. Child, you too old at that point. I feel like now, child. How do you cope with the trauma of your past?
Well, I have a way of blocking things out of my mind, and I just shut it out. I just see myself as better than that, and I don't let things get to me. Nothing really pull me down.
Okay. So what has life taught you so far?
Life has taught me you can be what you want to be, but you got to work hard for it. But life itself is a mind thing. And if you say that you can't do something, you can't do it. But if you say you can do it, you can do it. And I believe that I can do anything I really want to.
Okay. Turn into a cheetah.
A what?
A cheetah.
I'm already a cheetah when I run.
Is that right, Deerfoot Davis? All right, so what historical events do you you remember living through?
As I was saying, I remember Martin Luther King coming to my hometown. And I remember they let the high school kids, all black high school, they let them out of school that day because so many kids had left anyway, going downtown to march at G.C. Murphy's store where we could not eat. They had a restaurant on the inside that the white people could eat at, but we had to go around the back, and there was a little hole cut in the wall in the back that they would give you your food through the hole. But many of the high school students had made up their mind that they was going to eat in G.C. Murphy that day. And as we were sitting in there, they were sitting in there, because I was real small at the time. I was probably in about the 4th or the 5th grade. We were sitting in there on stools, and the people kept telling us to leave, and we wouldn't leave, so they brought dishwater out and threw it on us. Then they brought baking powder out and threw it on us. And called the police. The police came with the dogs. The dog was dragging people off seats and things and biting people. And I guess maybe 100 people went to jail that day. And we were sitting up in jail, joking and playing. It was like a game. So they ended up letting us go because there was nothing they could really do. But Martin Luther King came, and they demonstrated again about a week later. And when he came, they did come out and with the riot gear and all of that, and all they did was round us up, put us back in jail. Then late that night, they just turned everybody loose.
So you did say that you joined the military around the time of Vietnam, because that is a historical event. What do you remember about that, like that experience?
I remember when I was as I was saying earlier, when I went in the military, I really didn't think I'd make it because, like I was saying, I quit high school in the 10th grade, and I, for some reason, I just didn't think I would be able to make it in the military because the people I listened to made it sound a lot harder than it was. And once I got to basic training back then was a lot worse than it is now. They was allowed to hit you and all of that. The drill sergeants were.
Okay.
And people that talked a bunch of stuff to the drill sergeant, they had a room called the upper room. And they would tell you to meet the drill sergeant in the upper room. And when you go up there, sometimes be 3 or 4 of them in there, and they would beat you up pretty bad. And tell you better not tell what happened. So when you went down the stairs, nobody even asked what happened because everybody knew. But there wasn't nobody gonna talk about it because they knew they may end up going to the other room. But I found it to be a good experience once I got out of basic training. That, like I was saying, I realized that it was up to me what I became in the military. So whatever anybody else didn't want, that's what I volunteered for. I volunteered for the infantry. I volunteered to jump out of planes, being airborne. I volunteered to rappel off out of helicopters. And I became a pathfinder. And the pathfinder's job is to train you. They would take you out on a helicopter, and all you had was a map, one fish hook, and one meal. And you was out there for 2 weeks. So you have to find your food, and you have to find certain points that they would set up a coordinates on the point to tell you how to get to your next location. And if you miss that point, then you'll be out there lost that 2 weeks, and they're not coming to get you until the 2 weeks is up. But many nights I spent sleeping in trees because it was at Fort Carson, Colorado, and they had mountain lions, they had coyotes, they had bears, they had all kinds of stuff could kill you. So I slept in trees many nights with my knife in my hand the whole time. I got pretty hungry because the first week I would follow the river and fish with that one hook. And I had to leave the river to get to one point. So when I left the river, I was going across this mountain, and as I got across the mountain, I'd gotten hungry because it took me all day to go across that mountain. And when I got hungry, I didn't have no food, and I was looking for something I could kill to eat, and couldn't find nothing. So I heard a pack of coyotes coming about 10, 11 o'clock that night. So I went farther up in the tree, and the coyotes came to the bottom of the tree and just going around the tree, barking at me. Well, they don't bark, they just make that funny noise.
Something kind of noise.
And they was doing that, and I noticed they had some young ones with them. So I started to come down the tree and looking to see if there was a way I could catch one of the young ones. And so as the pack started to move off, I dived out of the tree on a young one and broke his neck and went on back up the tree. And as soon as I knew it was all clear, I climbed back out of the tree. I skinned him, I made me a fire, cooked him, and ate him. And I had some of it that had dried where I cooked it, and I kept it in my bag that I had with me, so I'd have food later on. But I ended up going on through the whole course, and it was really rough. By the time I finished the course, I lost something like 30 pounds in the training, and just beat all up from being up in the mountains out in Colorado.
That's scary. Okay. Yeah, so, okay. That whole breaking the coyote's neck thing got me. Okay.
You have to break the neck to keep them from squealing when the pack would come back. So if they heard him hollering, they would come back.
Yeah. Try to find him.
Okay. What do you want to be remembered by? I'm sure not the coyote neck thing.
I want to be remembered as somebody that has went out and tried to teach spiritual things to each and every person that I met. I want everybody to remember me by something I've said about God, the Bible, or just plain old just religious wisdom.
What message would you want to leave for your descendants or for, you know what I'm saying, anyone in the future? What words of wisdom would you like to leave?
The words I would leave would be, stop waiting on anybody else to give you anything. You can get it yourself. The door's been open. It's just a matter of, do you want it bad enough? Are you willing to go out there and do what it takes to get what you need out of life?
Okay. Well, would you like to talk more about your beautiful children?
I do think that all my girls are beautiful.
No, right.
Some of them might have gained a pound or two, but
Wait a minute, this is COVID weight.
but they say that, I've always heard that the bigger they are, the more the love. So that has been my motto from my first wife even to my second wife.
Oh, so you just a lover, huh?
Hey, I'm a Latin lover.
Ridiculous. Okay, is there anything you want to say? You want to talk anything about your first wife?
My first wife was a beautiful woman at the age of 10. Let's go back to 10.
Ooh.
At the age of 10, she was beautiful. And I made up my mind that I was going to marry her at 10 years old. And I was 12 at the time. And we dated from the time that she was 10 to the date, till she turned 17. We got married when she was 17. And she was a very, very strong woman. She was a very determined woman. She lived a hard life, so we could kind of relate to each other in our hard life, because she ended up growing up without a father and having to raise her brothers and sisters by herself because her mother had to work. Other than that, I look back over my life and I want to be an example to all my children, because people may say I didn't make it, but I feel like I made it. I feel like that I have many of the things that my parents would never have dreamed that I'd have. Getting off into the housing business like I did, my first business was a swimming pool business that I started, and I was doing well in it, but it just wasn't producing enough money. So I put down my swimming pool business and I started doing houses, buying houses, and I never in my life had worked on a house in my life. So the way I got started, I would look online and watch somebody do whatever I had to do, and then I'd go do it. Plus I bought a couple of these do-it-yourself books. And now I consider myself an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I can say, when I was a child, if somebody walked up to me and say, "Can you produce $20,000?" I couldn't do it then. I can do it today.
I do. I tell Eric all the time, when we talk about it, I've even told like my friend Patricia how I was about to fight in elementary school, because I told this girl that my daddy taught Batman how to bat, Superman how to soup, and Wonder Woman how to wonder. And she told me that wasn't the truth. And I was like, my daddy said that he taught Batman how to bat, Superman how to soup, and Wonder Woman how to wonder. So I was ready to fight, because you calling my daddy a lie at that point.
And you should have been ready to fight due to the fact that I did teach Batman. I did teach Wonder Woman how to wonder. She's still out there wondering right now.
Really? Did you teach Superman how to soup?
I taught him how to soup, but he messed around and ate part of the soup.
A mess. So I will tell you all that his first wife, Koba Davis, that is my mother. She's the one who birthed me and all of my siblings. There are 7 of us, and she passed away in 2004. And so we don't have the opportunity to interview her, but when I talk about my life and I do my interview, I will discuss my mother a little bit more. But when my dad married, I call her Nana because that's what the kids call her. When my dad married Althea, I know it was a struggle for us to accept, because all we had was my mom and dad our entire lives. We've always been a 2-parent home, and so we were still grieving, and it was hard to see my dad move on. But when I tell you, hands down, I do feel like Althea was an amazing addition to our family. It took me a minute to open up and accept it, just because that was me grieving still. But when I tell you, hands down, I absolutely love her, and she is totally awesome. If you ever call her and need her for anything, she does her best to always be there. So I will tell you that. And with my dad, he's not lying when he say he wasn't always the best. He was a little bit crazy. But no, I can say that my dad did everything he could to make sure his children had what they need, and we didn't have to go without. I can say that. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Not that I can think of, right?
I know I probably made you forget your words and lose your train of thought because I'm so fine. But all right, well, thank you so much for doing this interview. I genuinely appreciate it.
You're not welcome, and don't do it again.
Thank you, Daddy.